Hello everybody, this is Nick from Electric Bike Action. Today we're here at our local Santa Clarita shop and we're just going to do a bike check. So maybe something you might want to do the night before a ride or even when you just get to the trail. Stuff that's going to save you from checking it when you're actually out riding and having to push your bike back possibly. First of all, we'll start with, I would say maybe the most important thing is your brakes. So always check your brakes. There's a few things to go over. So, one thing would be is if you're pulling your lever in and it goes all the way to the handlebars, something's probably wrong. Either your pads are completely worn out or you need to maybe have them bled, or you kinked a hose and you have a leak somewhere. That's going to be, that could be catastrophic if something happens with the brakes. So you want to check over the brakes. You have the discs down here as well. It's good to maybe lift it up and make sure the disc isn't bent. If it is a 6-bolt tightening pattern on the disc as opposed to a center lock, you're going to want to check all those to make sure they're all tight, because they can come loose and you can get a little bit of play in there. So that's good to check, and also make sure your pads aren't getting close to going down to metal, because then you're going to have a lot of squeak and possibly heat up your discs and warp them. Other things to check: tire pressure. Sometimes you check the tire pressure, but it feels okay, but then you're out there on hard packed terrain and you're folding over a tire because it felt okay, but it was probably too low. So check your tire pressure, make sure you have enough for sure. And also, if you're running tubeless, make sure there's sealant in there. Sometimes you can lift the bike up and wiggle the wheel and hear if it's splashing in there, but if it's been more than 2 or 3 months, probably going to want to top that off. Other things to check out: just everywhere where there's a bolt, on the headstock here, the bolts that hold the clamp that holds the handlebars on, make sure those are tight. There's torque specs on all this stuff. So you might not have a torque wrench on the trail if you're just getting there, but you want to use some common sense. Don't over tighten them. Just make sure they're tight enough to where they're not going to fold down on you when you're riding. Other thing to check is headstock bearings. You can grab your front brake and wiggle the bike back and forth while your fingers are here on the top of the frame and where the headset clamps down here. And you're going to want to go back and forth and make sure there's no play in there. And you can also lift it up, and if it's too tight, that means it's too tight and you're putting too much pressure on the bearings, going to wear them out a lot faster. So that's something to check out. Also axle, sometimes these axles, not so much on the front, but it's good to check the front. More on the back, we see them coming loose occasionally. So whether it's an Allen head or if it's a quick release or whatever it is, make sure you have a way to tighten that. I always keep one of these on me. This is a Crank Brothers multi-tool. It has a lot of pretty much all the tools that I need on it to work on most e-bikes. Also has a chain brake tool on there, just in case you snap a chain on the trail. I can whip that out and fix stuff on the trail. So another thing with e-bikes is your cranks. Cranks can be either tightened down, you have going through the motor, or it's going to be just a 1 bolt that cranks it down on per side. But those, I've seen people come in and they're out on a ride and their crank falls off, which also can be catastrophic. So that has a torque spec as well. Again, if you don't have a torque wrench handy, tighten it down if you have to go riding, but then maybe bring it to your local shop or get a torque wrench, make sure that's torqued down properly. Also the pedals as well. Pedals, even though they turn on, tighten down forward, those can come loose as well, and that's could be a serious problem if those come out on you. Another really e-bike specific thing is these cassettes. Every once in a while we get people coming in with loose cassettes. That's something you can almost hear out on the trail. You'll hear a rattling or a clanking going on back there. You do need a special tool to fix that, but it's not something you want to go out and ride with and cause more damage, because you're going to get play in there and then you're going to put torque on it and possibly have another failure or wear something out faster than it needs to be worn out. So that's something really good to check out. Also, your linkage bolts here and the bolts that hold the shock on. Check those. If whatever size the Allen is, check those. Make sure those are tight. The linkage bolts are tight. All stuff that can come loose while riding. And last thing I probably want to mention is suspension. Maybe this isn't the most crucial thing, but it is important. You don't want to run it too low so that you're bottoming out and damaging the bushings on the inside of the shock or whatever. So whatever it recommends for your weight, you know, that's what you want to keep an eye on. And of course, you're going to need a shock pump for that to handle that much PSI, because these run up to, you know, 200 and some pounds of PSI. So another important thing to check out to make everything that you have last longer. And just make sure everything's tight on all your nuts and bolts. There's lots of nuts and bolts on this bike. It's just like anything. Make sure they're all good. You know, sometimes we go out and we think, oh, I checked it last time, it's good, so I'll be fine, and we've all done it. But it's important to, as much as you can, keep an eye on all that stuff to keep yourself safe out on the trail. All right, hope that's been a help. Check us out on Instagram, Electric Bike Action, and check out our magazine. Thanks everyone, have a good day.